The movie starts in America right around the time of the presidential elections. There's this candidate named Ross getting ready to announce his campaign to the people and convince them to vote for him. You can tell he's super nervous and stressed out, because it's his first time running for president. He's talking to his assistant and asks her if his daughter Betty called him or not. She tells him Betty hasn't called for a long time and nobody knows where she is. And then we find out that when Ross used to work in the army, he hated superheroes and kept chasing them because he thought they were bad guys and hurting people, especially the superhero Hulk. That's all because his daughter Betty loved Hulk, and when she found out her dad tried to kill him, she decided to stay away from him and hasn't talked to him in a long while. During his campaign, Ross is out here talking to people, trying to prove he's changed and that he now likes superheroes and wants to rely on them. He tells them his favorite superhero is Captain America, and if he wins, he'll make Captain America chase gangs and criminals and catch them. 6 months go by, Ross wins the election and becomes the new president of America. He gives Captain America a job to catch this dangerous gang that stole some chemicals from a Japanese ship. So Captain America heads to Mexico to track them down. When he gets there, Cap beats them all up and starts looking for the stolen chemicals. Out of nowhere, he hears people inside a church screaming for help. So he tells Joaquin, his sidekick, to go grab the chemicals while he goes inside to save the people. On his way, Cap runs into a bunch of gang members and takes them down easy. He keeps moving and heads into the church hall, where he sees Saeed, the gang leader. Cap throws his shield at him, but it misses. Suddenly, Saeed's sidekick attacks Cap, giving Saeed a chance to escape. Captain America and the sidekick get into a tough fight, but Cap finally brings him down right as the cops show up and arrest Saeed's sidekick. Meanwhile, Joaquin chases after the other gang members who have the bag full of chemicals, fights them, snatches the bag, then comes back to Cap and tells him what happened. Joaquin then asks Cap to train him, to teach him new fight moves so he can become a hero just like Cap someday. Captain America agrees, saying he'll introduce him to his own trainer, Bradley, so he can train him too. Joaquin gets all excited and goes to meet Bradley, who turns out to be this old dude who's still super strong and got mad fighting skills. Turns out, Bradley can lift crazy heavy weights like they're nothing. After that, they all start training together, but then someone from the White House calls up Cap to tell him President Ross is throwing a party at the White House and wants Cap and Joaquin to come. Cap agrees, but only if he can bring Bradley. He talks it over with Bradley, trying to convince him to go to the party, but Bradley is dead against it, because he really hates Ross for what happened to him back in the day. Cap insists that Ross is different now and respects superheroes, even telling Bradley it's Ross who gives him missions to take down all the gangs, so Bradley finally agrees to tag along since it's been years since he left the house. That night, the three of them head to the White House. You can see Bradley's nervous because he hasn't been out in ages. As soon as they get there, the three of them take a selfie together, and then Taylor, the president's assistant, comes over to talk to Cap and asks him to follow her to see the president. Cap goes with her and they walk and chat, obviously old friends. While that's happening, Joaquin and Bradley are hanging out. Joaquin sends Bradley the selfie. Out of the blue, Bradley's phone lights up all weird and he can't figure out why. Meanwhile, Cap gets to the president's office. Ross welcomes him in, thanks him for what he did in Mexico, and asks him to bring together the Avengers team so he can talk to them and give them missions to go after gangs for good. Cap is confused by the request, because Ross had declared war on the Avengers before, but he says he'll think about it. Then, everyone heads to the party, where President Ross tells the crowd that some cosmic objects popped up in the Indian Ocean recently, and all the countries did research on them, especially Japan. They found out there's a crazy strong material called adamantium inside these things, kinda like the stuff superhero suits are made from, only even stronger. He goes on explaining that Saeed's gang stole the material from a Japanese ship heading to America, but Captain America and his sidekick Joaquin managed to get it back. Suddenly, some loud music starts playing. All of a sudden, Bradley gets up like something's controlling him, attacks one of the president's bodyguards, grabs his gun, and starts shooting at Ross. The glass in front of Ross shatters and Ross drops to the ground. At the same time, 4 other people start shooting at Ross, trying to kill him. Sophie, the head of security, rushes in, saves Ross, and gets him out of there fast. Bradley freaks out and runs for the garden, scared out of his mind. Then Cap runs after him and finds him all shook and not remembering anything that just happened. Cap tries to calm Bradley down and tells him to turn himself in so he can help clear his name. Bradley agrees, because he honestly doesn't remember a thing. The cops come and arrest him. Cap goes to see President Ross and begs him to get Bradley out of jail because he's sure someone was controlling Bradley with some crazy advanced tech or superpowers. Cap explains Bradley already did 30 years in jail before, and it messed him up so bad he never left the house, and he'd never do something that'd get him locked up again. But Ross says there's nothing he can do. Bradley's face is all over the news as the guy who tried to kill the president, so if he lets him out, the public will think he's recruiting criminals. Sophie, the head of security, says she'll personally investigate Bradley's case, and if he's innocent, she'll get him out. But she's convinced he's guilty and was part of the plot with the other 4 guys. Cap walks away super pissed, goes to see Bradley in jail the next day, and talks to him, confirming that Bradley really doesn't remember anything. Bradley just sits there crying, full of regret that he ever left his house. He tells Cap the only thing he remembers is his phone lighting up weirdly. After Cap leaves, Sophie's in the surveillance room and has heard everything. She decides to review the party footage. Cap, meanwhile, calls Joaquin and asks him to hack into the White House security cameras to find out what happened with Bradley that night. Joaquin does it and discovers that Bradley and the other 4 shooters all had phones that lit up in that weird way. As Cap hangs up, Saeed, the gang leader, shows up, starts shooting at him while Cap is in his car, then throws a grenade to try and kill him. Cap survives, goes after Saeed. They fight it out until Cap stabs Syed with a knife and knocks him out without killing him. Said's phone rings and Cap picks up. There's a mysterious voice on the line, telling Cap he's been behind everything since the chemical theft and that he won't stop until he kills Cap and wipes out all the superheroes. Meanwhile, in jail, Sophie is interrogating Bradley. While on her way, she sees an investigator called Bayumi, who's murdering the remaining shooters, then turns the gun on himself. Through Bayumi's radio, Sophie hears the same song that played at the party before the attack on the president. She decides to move Bradley to solitary for his own safety. At the same time, President Ross is flying to Japan. He calls the manager of a camp named Aiko and asks about a prisoner there called Samuel. Out of nowhere, gunshots ring out, and Samuel himself replies, saying his time for revenge has come. Back at Aiko's camp, Captain America sneaks in, makes his way to a weird lab, and finds out this lab did dangerous experiments on superheroes. He sees photos of Bradley and the shooters. Suddenly, Samuel shows up, looking scary as hell, and tells Cap that he's the reason for everything that's happened, all because Ross locked him up for 16 years and experimented on him non-stop. Over time, Samuel invented a new kind of hypnosis using sound and light, the same thing he used to control Bradley and the other shooters. Cap loses it and attacks him, but Samuel uses a weapon that shoots sound waves, pinning Cap in place before unleashing a squad of hypnotized soldiers on him, ordering them to kill Cap. Samuel then escapes. Cap manages to fight off the soldiers with Joaquin, and when they leave the lab, they run into Sophie leading some more soldiers, who she orders not to shoot Cap. But they ignore her, because Samuel is controlling them with his hypnosis. Sophie attacks, shows off her insane skills and strength, and fights them all one by one. Once she's done, she tells Cap and Joaquin that she's investigated Bradley's case and is sure he's innocent. She knows Samuel's the real reason behind everything, especially after seeing Bayumi out of his mind, killing people. Right then, another squad of soldiers grabs Joaquin and Cap and tells Sophie they're acting on President Ross's orders. Sophie tries to call Ross to find out why, but suddenly, Samuel's song comes over the soldiers' radios and he hypnotizes them all. Cap and Joaquin book it, the soldiers start shooting at them, and Cap uses his shield to protect himself. They all jump in Sophie's car and take off. Next, they head to an army camp. Cap asks the camp commander if he can use his laptop. Joaquin runs the Samuel song on it, to make sure the commander's not under control. When nothing happens, they feel safe and plan to meet the president to tell him everything. The commander tells them Ross is on a warship in the Indian Ocean. Cap suits up, grabs Joaquin, and they fly off to catch him. They see a fleet of Japanese ships tailing Ross's warship, all heading toward the cosmic object. Cap walks in on President Ross and spills everything he's learned about Samuel. Ross explains he locked up Samuel all those years because he was super smart, and his whole job was to find a cure for Ross's weak heart. When Samuel finally found it, Ross promised to let him go, but kept needing more treatment, so Samuel got pissed and now wants revenge for all those years locked up. While they're talking, U.S. fighter jets start launching missiles at the Japanese fleet, and Captain America and Joaquin rush out to stop a major war from breaking out. The Japanese jets fire missiles back, so Cap and Joaquin scramble to intercept. Cap sees one missile heading for the American ship and tries to stop it, but Joaquin gets there first. The thing explodes on him. He takes the hit and falls into the ocean. U.S. rescue teams rush to save him before he drowns. President Ross is in his war room, talking to the Japanese president, trying to convince him he didn't order his jets to fire. The Japanese president doesn't believe him, because the planes can't act without orders. Suddenly, Ross hears Samuel's voice over his headset and realizes Samuel is controlling the U.S. jets, starting a war between the two countries. Samuel tells him the medicine he's been getting isn't curing his heart. It's actually turned him into a monster that can destroy the world, and if he stops taking the meds, he dies. Samuel tries to push his buttons and brings out the monster within. Sure enough, Ross freaks, his whole body seizes, and he starts turning into someone else. Taylor, his assistant, runs in and tries to calm him down, thinking he's just sick. She tells him Cap managed to stop the war at the last minute and asks him to call the Japanese president for peace talks. Samuel finds out his plan failed and loses it. The next day, Captain America heads to the hospital to see Joaquin, finding him hooked up to machines and in really bad shape. Cap's crushed and blames himself for not saving Joaquin from the missile. Meanwhile, the Army camp commander is in training when his assistant calls and says he investigated Samuel and found that the pills Ross took were full of radiation that could turn him into a monster like the Hulk. The commander panics and tries to call Cap, but Samuel shows up and hypnotizes him, stopping his heart. Back to Ross, he finally calls his daughter Betty. She answers for the first time in ages. He apologizes for everything, tells her he's changed, and that he wants to be a better person. She forgives him and worries about him because of what happened in the Indian Ocean. Ross reassures her he's okay and hangs up because he's headed to a press conference. Just then, Samuel shows up and talks to Cap, confessing all of this was about getting revenge on Ross for destroying his life, and that today he'll expose Ross to the world. After Samuel's done, the cops arrive and he peacefully surrenders without a fight. During the press conference, the president is talking to reporters, explaining he's not responsible for the war with Japan, and that Samuel controlled the U.S. jets to start trouble between the countries, so everyone would blame Ross. One reporter interrupts to announce that Samuel just turned himself in and it's all over the news, and Samuel is saying Ross destroyed his life. Ross tries to defend himself, but before he can speak, the loudspeakers start playing an old recording of him and Samuel talking. The reporters realize Samuel's telling the truth. Ross flips out, gets this wild headache, suddenly collapses, and transforms into a giant red Hulk-looking monster. Taylor, his assistant, and the security guards start shooting, but nothing happens. He's out of control and charges at them. Cap shows up, throws his shield at him, but even Cap can't hurt him. Even fighter jets attack without effect. Ross smashes them all. Cap decides to lure Ross away from the White House so no one else gets hurt and calls Sophie to send backup to the city park. Cap then taunts Ross by shooting arrows at him to get him to chase him to the park. The plan works. They reach the park, where Ross hurls a whole tree at Cap. Cap blocks it, but Ross socks him so hard he goes flying. They keep fighting. Ross grabs Cap and breaks off one of Cap's suit wings, but Cap uses the other wing to stab Ross, setting off a huge energy blast that blows up the whole area. Sophie comes in to help, and tells Cap backup's nearly there. Suddenly, they see Ross is still up, raging and about to finish Cap. Cap moves in slow and talks Ross down, telling him to think about what he loves most, his daughter Betty. Ross cools off and turns back to normal. The cops arrest him. Sophie thanks Cap for saving the world twice, once in the America-Japan War and now from Ross. She tells him to head to the hospital to get patched up, but Cap refuses and heads to the prison first to get his trainer Bradley out. He frees Bradley, then heads to a new Supermax jail out at sea where Ross is held. Cap thanks Ross for controlling his rage and surrendering at the last second, telling him he brought his daughter Betty to visit. Ross is moved seeing her after all this time and tells her he's waiting to get out so he can take her to the park to play like they did when she was a kid. Cap leaves them to catch up and goes to the hospital to check on Joaquin. He's overjoyed to find Joaquin awake and recovering, promising to fix up his suit and put the Avengers team back together, making Joaquin the first member of the new squad, just like he always dreamed. Joaquin thanks Cap, tells him he's his idol and that he became a superhero just to be like him. Cap thanks him too and leaves the hospital. Sometime later, Captain America visits Samuel in a high-security prison, making fun of him for finally getting caught after all the chaos he caused. Samuel tells Cap his mind is brilliant with numbers and predictions, even saying he can calculate what's going to happen in the future. He says he knew he'd lose this fight, which is why he surrendered. He's only one piece in a huge war between planets. Aliens and new superheroes from other worlds will show up soon, and they're strong enough to wipe out all the Avengers. Samuel warns Cap to get ready, 'cause the future's gonna be dark. And that's where the movie ends.